So this is a song that I wrote with Eileen O'Shaughnessy while we were on tour together in Scotland. And we actually thought of Joanna's 7 generations exercise when we were writing it. And like we were having a dialogue, with them, counseling with them as we were writing the song. And I think the song really came out as an expression of one way that Joanna's teachings and deep ecology teachings and deep time teachings have hit both of us. And it was very inspired by, we're just sitting, we're just letting the words come. And the chorus ended up being, and let the land sing through you like the rolling holy. And that was Scotland, Where are we going to? Where did I come from? What does it mean to all be bones under the same old sun? I've always been right here. What is it that we hold? Can you tell me? What is it holding my feet to the ground as it shakes off? Always been right here. So let the land sing through you like the rolling holy. Let the land sing through you like the rolling holy. Ooh, 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 Trees, my lungs miss my breath. That moon is blooming in my chest. Courage, my love. Your roots go deep, down deep. Scrambled stardust and mud make up my own bones and blood. I've always been right here. So let the land sing through you like the rolling holy. Let the land sing through you like the rolling holy. And then they came with their torches and their guns. And so my friends gathered one by one. I asked the spider how she weaves her web. And she replied, my dear, thread by thread, like ancestors with songs in their packs. And they became us track by track. What is the mud that made you? What is the mud that made you? What is the mud that made you? I love the mud that made you. What is the mud that made you? What is the mud that made you? What is the mud that made you? So let the land sing through you like the rolling holy. Let the land sing through you like the rolling holy. Oh, let the land sing through you like the rolling holy. Let the land sing through you like the rolling holy. And I remember it was the first week of school, and I had signed up for this master's program in philosophy, cosmology, and consciousness. And then I show up at school and I realize I have no idea what we're going to talk about. And I was like, what have I done? And then here's this class, The Great Turning, with Joanna, Macy. And so within the first 10 minutes, Joanna said why we were there and had named our pain for the world. And all of a sudden, here was this thing, this part of me that had a name that had been misnamed my whole life. I'm too sensitive. I care too much. I feel that I cry too easily. But in naming that, Joanna liberated me in a way. And ever since then, I've gone towards it, kind of like a moth to a flame of what is it that's there, that's unspoken, that I feel like so many people feel and don't know what to do with. So I went deep into studying Joanna's work and in facilitating it as well, and kind of just really listening over and over again to the different iterations of how people are doing with what's happening on the planet and what helps in the navigating of it, in the orienting towards it, in the liberation of energy around it, in the freeing of paralysis around it. And bodhicitta, this concept of bodhicitta had become so central in what I was understanding that we were talking about and working with, that great motivation of the archetype of the bodhisattva, the ability to be with suffering without turning away, and the impulse to do something about it. And as soon as I had learned about that, I went, wait, what had happened? What happened to that? That seems really critical to understand what happened to that, and to know that here were Tibetan Buddhists who had said it was the most important of all human qualities to be nurtured above all else, entire texts written about it, and I barely had a word in English for it. So now I've come to understand it as healing intelligences awakened by suffering. That feels like the essence of who I am. So everything I've done after, the facilitation of the work that reconnects, the bringing of music in with it, observing how song keeps community resilient, what keeps us good to each other, how do we deparalyze and contribute ourselves to something in such overwhelming times. It's all focused on nurturing bodhicitta, and that's where I really felt like I came to know my particular torch in the ecosystem of healing that is on the planet right now. You know, my little piece to try and keep alive.
You also, during that time, brought forth a concept that was new because you were curious about it. And you named something, you named it Wounded Bodhicitta.
Yeah.
Tell us how that happened.
Well, as soon as I learned about this quality, this intelligence called bodhicitta, hand in hand with it was that I felt like that part of us maybe had gotten wounded in a variety of ways. Like when you're, watching my dad go to work every day and what that kind of did to his soul and feeling powerless to stop that. I think that had wounded my bodhicitta, my desire to help in some way. The overwhelming nature of the crisis, the way we can turn on each other. All the people who say, well, you can't make money doing that, so you shouldn't care about it. That there's all these different ways that bodhicitta, that capacity within us, can split, can self-sacrifice, selfishness, and can get wounded. And then I felt like, and I still feel like part of what the work that reconnects does is heal wounded bodhicitta.
This is where I sense that like something taking off and into a headwind, and so you could lift like a plane lifts going up, and this concept wounded bodhicitta was so right for our culture at this time, a culture that tragically is being exported and absorbed around the world.
And to not care has become normalized because I think subconsciously we're taught be complicit in the system and don't worry about all the suffering it creates. That's supposed to be that way. And I think that's probably one of the main things that cripples that part of us and confuses that part of us that really does care about what happens to people, is we're taught that has no value here. What's more important is you being able to self-sustain, being able to work for 40 years or 50 years and keep going so you can be a successful human being. Don't worry about who's hurting.
And that obsession with grief in the world, or look at the poisoning, the dying, the overwhelm. It's been pathologized.
Yeah, like it's not normal.
So what happens with how does but singing's not abnormal.
Well,
yeah, so
yeah, and there's been a lot. I mean, first of all, to the point about grief, it's so normal. It's such an understandable reaction to what's happening. And so to pathologize grief is to inhibit one of the primary intelligences that we can have arise in us that say, I'm connected to the web of life. I care about what happens. And I might actually have something of value to contribute here. What a silly thing for us to do to each other. But that's what late stage capitalism and the military industrial complex needs us to do. And so I was a musician my whole life. Never planned on being a musician as an adult. Had kind of an epiphany that it went right alongside the work that reconnects, and have been observing and learning the way singing, I mean, in a very practical way, soothes the nervous system and prepares us to be able to be more available, to have more capacity for change. But that it's a primary response of how people metabolize what is happening emotionally, relationally, and culturally in our environments in a way that can nurture bodhicitta to keep going and help empower and strengthen it. Well, I didn't know that the first 6 years that I was studying with you and doing the work that reconnects. And then, here comes this, it goes right hand in hand. And then what I'm finding in the workshops is that doing the exercises, talking about the teachings, and then singing helps to integrate what we're talking about.
It also lets the oxygen come in.
Right.
Everybody.
It does. Yeah, and even if people are just listening, I think music is probably one of the last healthy ways on a mass level that we self-soothe. There's all these unhealthy ways we can observe on a mass level. I think when we give each other the gift, the permission to sing together again, it's amazing to see what happens for people in 5 minutes. I mean, it takes 5 minutes. And it pairs so beautifully with this body of work, with this conversation. How are you doing with what's happening? I am constantly traveling to different communities around the world and talking to people who do give a damn about what happens to the planet and to each other, whether it's in Anchorage, Alaska, or Alabama, or Scotland, or, I'm constantly engaging with people who want to understand how to be better equipped for the times that we're in. And you've taught me, don't let, and I can see the truth behind it, don't let anyone tell you that we're going to make it out of this, and don't let anyone tell you that we're not going to make it out of this. That's why I don't really engage in hopefulness or hopelessness. It's not that for me. It's, I don't know what's going to happen, so what do I want to do? What do I want to pledge myself to? I understand that power is not in predictability here. It's somewhere else. For me, power is in grace and beauty and kindness and justice. And those things, their value is not determined by what happens. They're valuable in and of themselves. And I know if we do make it out of this, it rides on that. So is it sometimes hard to not know what's going to happen, to face the degree of suffering that is still the things that we need to understand to provide the accurate medicine? Yes. And how are we going to know the medicine if we can't be with the wound? And I feel like my spine for being with the wound has been strength. It wasn't strong 10 years ago. It has been strengthened because of your work, because of the lenses that it gave me.
And the faces that you've seen come
Yeah.
alive, and the voices that you've heard.
Yeah.
And so, you can imagine how I feel when people say to me after a week of workshops and people, "Oh, you must be so tired."
Mm-hmm.
Hey, come on. This is life's blood coming. It's so wonderful that we not only can come alive, people want to come alive. They're glad to come alive. It's not normal for people to become zombie-like. Interesting. Isn't it interesting that there's so many films and evocations and about zombies? Because that's the way. It's like the industrial growth is like the fossil fuel industry. They're zombie-like.
Yeah.
That's where the zombies are. Yeah.
I know people say, I'm scared of the way that we're going to turn humans or give machines human qualities. And I'm like, we've spent the last 250 years giving humans machine-like qualities. We have to rehumanize ourselves here, So I'm not surprised that there's so many collective stories about zombies, about the end of the world. But it does mean it's like people aren't, it's there. And more, just in the last decade, when I'm talking to a random person on the street and they say, what do you do with your life? Used to be really hard to describe that and have people understand. Now I say, I help people with their pain for the world. Many more people know what I'm talking about today than did even 5 years ago. It's okay to say that you're concerned even if you don't know what to do. Even if you don't know the solution, it's valuable for you to say, I'm concerned about what's happening, and to do it together and to be able to say, hey, this is overwhelming. Yes, it absolutely is.
And that it's valuable to say that even when people say, well, what would you do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first, I guess I have to feel it. First, I have to say it, don't I? But that I see how that shuts people up. That demanding a solution. If you have a complaint or feel grief, sorrow, fear, outrage, overwhelm, powerless, to simply say so, and to say so in the ways that we have brought forth in the work that reconnects, is in itself a blow for freedom. It sets you free in some way to take the next step, rather than saying, I guess I don't have a panacea for the world. I guess I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah.
And so I'll shut up and pretend I'm okay.
And I think a key move in that is with people from shame to dignity.
Go on about that.
I think that it's easy for us to feel shame that we don't know what to do and shame that we don't have an answer. But I think the key is that you actually are re-inheriting your dignity to be concerned about the well-being of others. You're re-inheriting your place in the web of life to be concerned about what is happening to the ecosystems of our planet. And that there is dignity that comes with that. And then now we have more integrity. We all deserve to feel our place and our value as a member of the web of this mysterious life. And maybe that's part of why grief is valuable. It gives us that back.
Just like Parsifal discovered.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You want to say more about that story?
Yeah. It's like that. In the Middle Ages, the last myth to arise was that of the Grail and the Fisher King. And at a moment when something was so happening so powerfully in the workshops, and I thought, but so many people won't come to a workshop. What can we do? And how can we take what do people discover in a workshop outside? And I thought of the legend of Parsifal when he went out on a quest to be of use, and then he found himself in the wasteland.
Yeah.
And that was the first mention of wasteland, first use of the word in history, and everything was barren, and nothing was growing. And when he finally found shelter in the castle of the Fisher King, he found that the king himself, the ruler, was wounded in the groin, as he said, and lost the powers of regeneration. He was sick, his wound stunk, and the prophecy had been that this curse that befell the land and the ruler would be lifted only if a knight came with the question that would free them. But Parsifal had been told that, because he was really on the make, he wanted to rise in culture and King Arthur's court, that he would don't ask questions. So he didn't ask questions. He just bowed to the king, and nothing happened. And he saw everybody there in the court was acting as if it were normal. That was it. That just all the people acted as if to devastate the devastated world was a normal thing, and not to talk about it. And then I remembered what Parsifal did. He finally found his way home. It took him a long time. And pretty even getting up on his horse, nobody was there to help him get up with all that armor on, you can imagine. And but he went into a depression until he was so excoriated by this not a cruel elf, but she was with this embodiment of saving wisdom, Kundry. And she said, "You are a sorry excuse for a knight. You didn't even have one word of caring or curiosity. Did you express any caring?" That's why he said, and so he realized that how he'd failed morally, and it took him a long time to find his way back to the wasteland, and then to go to the castle of the Fisher King. And there it was, still is even more degenerated than ever. It was even, they had to put flowers all over the place to cover over the smell of the king's wound. And he just walked right up to where the king was lying there on his hammock bed, says the legend. And he knelt there and he said, "I see, what aileth thee?" That did it. That's what you were doing. What aileth thee? And that, so how are you doing? What's up for you, bro? And but with that question, everything came to life. The color came to his face. He stood up and he looked, and you could look out the window and the land was sprouting green. That's what, It's asking
How are you doing?
how you're really doing, and then in a way that people, and in a way, in a place.
And I think my concerts have been another, like you, like I didn't want to just do it in workshops, even though I love workshops. So not everyone comes to a workshop a lot, but people come to concerts all the time. And so finding, like, now I use the spiral of the work that reconnects to make my set lists. And I'll drop even
Let's
just
explain that then, maybe, and how you fit it into a concert.
so I use this kind of roadmap that has come from doing this work that Joanna's been doing, and many people have been doing, but there's kind of a roadmap and trajectory for the workshop that has arisen that we follow according, we position the exercises and the teachings according to this spiral. And there's 4 kind of main stops. And the beginning of it, which is what many wisdom traditions have taught us about, is starting with gratitude as a lifeline, as the place that we begin, the words we say before everything else. And then I heard you say, when you live in a political economy that wants you to feel needy and insufficient, so you buy things, to take stock of what you have at your back is a subversive political act. To take stock of what you have with you. And I was like, all right, like, like that, boom, like the weight came in.
And then you have a celebrative song.
Yeah, I have gratitude songs like Sing to the Mountain, or different songs that say, this is what's at our backs. This is what's with us. It's in our bones. We're born with this, And then in the work that reconnects, the next stop is the honoring our pain for the world. Because when we talk about what we love, inherently, we can conjure up easily the images of what's being lost. And so going into and sharing, some of the things I've learned about why honoring our pain, why re-inherit that dignity, why open those painful pathways up, because it's information about our world, because that's what stimulates healing, because we have to know the wound to know the medicine, all of those things.
Yes, what songs might you be singing for them?
There's one that I sing it's a Grace Potter song actually, called Nothing But the Water. And it says, I have seen what man can do when the evil lives inside of him. You want it?
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Okay.
Do I know it? I
don't know. It goes, I have seen what man can do when the evil lives inside of you. Many are the weak and the strong are few, but with the waters we'll start anew. So there's where it starts going into seeing with new eyes. So won't you take me down to the levee? Take me down to the stream. Take me down to the water. We're gonna wash our souls clean. Take me down to the river. Take me down to the lake. Yes, we'll all go together. We'll all go together. This is not for any of us to do alone. We'll all go together. We're gonna do it for the good Lord's sake. We do it for the good of it. We do it because that feeds the good. It feeds the good to acknowledge what we are not okay with in the world. Yeah. And then that's the music. I mean, there's a way that I can say it, but let's sing it. So anyway, then honoring our pain, and I think what you've seen and talked about and what I've experienced happens when we do that is there's more right relationship that comes online, and we kind of reawaken and find ourselves in the midst of a living web that we had maybe disconnected from because it was too painful. And then, so sharing kind of different wisdoms from that. Like the song I sang is probably going to be, it's going to be a Seeing with New Eyes song. Let the land sing through you. I am Gaia singing to herself. I am not just Lydia walking on a dead planet who wants to sing a song because it sounds good and I want to look pretty and be clapped for. I am Gaia wanting to sing to herself, sing her song of what is happening on the planet. You taught me that. You liberated that in me.
Yeah, and you liberated in countless people hearing you.
And just to finish the spiral, so seeing with new eyes, waking up in this web and going forth, being the bodhicitta strengthening, okay, how do we connect this with the through line of how you stay steady and what you want to pledge yourself to in the world? And that has value independent of knowing what's going to happen. It's okay. I sing my song Pray for Peace there often because Lila June Johnston taught me that everything we do is a prayer.
Sing it.
Well, the main refrain of it is really simple. It's just, I'll see it in the mountains. I'll see it. I will see life committing to herself in all these places. It will feed me. We share this intention. I'll see it in the mountains. I'll see it in the moonlight. I'll see it in forever. And I'll pray for peace. You can see it in the shadows. You can see it in the pain. You can see it in the sunset on the sea.
Yeah.
You can see it in forever. We'll pray for peace. Yeah.